opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. Welcome to Pediatric Perspectives, where we are taking a look at children's health challenges from a different perspective, one that includes critical thinking. We are not afraid to ask the difficult questions and give you the honest truth. I am honored to have as my guest today a good friend, Tracy Slepcevic. Tracy, we met right after you had written this amazing book, Warrior Mom. You know, when I was in practice, I'm a retired pediatrician at this point, but when I was in practice, that was a term I used. I had so many moms who went through a story somewhat like yours, children regressing into autism and fighting like a warrior to recover or try to recover their kids. So thank you for not only writing this book, but for being an incredible warrior. You are the founder and president of the Autism Health, Inc., a nonprofit. You are a U.S. Air Force veteran, a certified integrative health practitioner, of course, the best-selling author of Warrior Mom, A Mother's Journey in Healing Her Son with Autism, and you're a member of the Federal Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee. So we have plenty to talk about. What got you into all of this? And of course, you have a son, same name as my firstborn son, Noah, and briefly maybe share his story and how that impacted the trajectory of your life and career.
He gave me purpose. So many years ago, when my son was first diagnosed in 2008 with autism, I felt very desperate and alone and scared and so many unanswered questions. And I say the beautiful part of my story, although it's not original, because Noah was a vaccine injury. At 18 months, he received his measles, mumps, rubella, and varicella vaccines, came down with the measles, and then had a high fever for about a week. And then I saw a slow regression over the next several months, losing speech, baby signs, because we did have baby signs, and cognitive function, and a lot of motor skills. By the grace of God, Noah was still able to walk, but he lost his ability to climb, to jump, to really have much coordination. And from there, when Noah was finally diagnosed, because my pediatrician just kept telling me everything was so normal. From there, I say God sent me an angel. That's my original story. When Noah was diagnosed, I just so happened to be strolling down the hallway, going back to my office, and I was crying, and I saw my naturopathic doctor in the hallway, Dr. Joshua Burka, and he stopped me, and I told him what was going on, and he looked at me and said, "No, we'll be okay. You need to go home and you need to do your homework." He said, "Kids with autism are making great strides with biomedical intervention." Now, at the time, I had no idea what biomedical intervention was. I was a psychology student. But I quickly sucked the tears back up into my eyes. I almost ran home. And back then, you could Google healing autism. It was great. And you can get all sorts of information. I started reading books, going to conferences, tea talks, meetings, whatever I could engage in and learn as much as I possibly could, because that window of early intervention was starting to close. Noah was already 3.5 years old, and I really wanted to get to work. So immediately, before I even found a functional medicine doctor, I started cleaning up Noah's diet. Only real food. No gluten, no dairy, no soy, no refined sugars or carbs. We did give him like potatoes. I made French fries at home because I had to give him some sort of treat. And, that made the biggest difference.
So actual just changing his diet, and you do outline that in your book. It's more towards the end, but that's how you started. And I think it's important for parents who might be watching and not having, maybe they have a new diagnosis, or maybe they're still struggling with, trying to recover their kid. My experience and hearing you share your story is that the diet is primary and key, and it's so important.
As we say, it's the foundation. If you don't lay the foundation and clean the gut, heal the gut, then you don't heal the body and heal the brain, right?
Yeah.
Connected via the nervous system. So when your gut's inflamed, your brain's inflamed. So before we moved on to any other advanced treatments, therapies, IV therapies, hyperbarics, so on and so forth, it was so important to just lay that foundation and make sure that we healed Noah's little body. So that was the first thing that I dove in and did, and I was already like about 4 to 6 weeks into it before I had our first appointment with our functional medicine doctor, who was back then a Dan doctor. It fell under Defeat Autism Now, which no longer exists. So from there, she gave me, more things to do. We did have to give Noah a lot of IV treatments because he definitely lacked in, nutrients and proteins and essential nutrients that he needed. So he ended up having to get those through IV until we could clean all the yeast that was out of his gut. But from there, Noah just he started to spit out words and put words together. And now I'm here to say this doesn't always happen for every child, but I feel that it's the most important thing to do because even those that are non-speaking, they do have those underlying conditions, and a lot of them are screaming in pain. And,
Mhm.
to address those gut issues is super important.
Which IV treatments did you find were most impactful, where you could say this really made a difference?
I find that the most important thing, because Noah was a pandas kid, right?
And
Was
describe what that is for people who may not know those terms.
pediatric autoimmune neuropsychotrophic disorder associated with streptococcus. So elevated strep levels in the blood, right? Am I right?
Mhm.
And it affects them neurologically. It causes inflammation in the brain, which can cause behavioral symptoms. So if you see a lot of behavioral symptoms from a child, typically, they are those strep kids. It also causes tics, Tourette's, and all sorts of other behavioral, disorders that people don't realize is the underlying condition. With that, we started off with like high dose vitamin C, IVIG therapy with antibiotics, which just re-tore up his gut after I had cleaned it
Mhm.
out. So we had gone to other methods, and the best one that I found, which was most effective, was doing 10 pass IV ozone therapy. Now, we didn't just immediately go to a 10 pass. We started off at a 2 and then a 4 and a 6. So we went up by twos, and once Noah got to 10, it pretty much like kicked it out of his system. The more passes we did, the more fatigued he was. He slept a lot, which is more die off. So that was important, but that's a good sign, and that I found that was the most effective.
The IV ozone therapy, is that a treatment you can get here in the US?
Yes. So it's hard to find 10 pass. It might be easier to find, IV ozone because a lot of them don't have the actual machine that does the 10 pass. So it draws the blood up into the vial, spins it with the ozonated oxygen, and then puts it back in. And
Mhm.
each one is a pass. Um, that is a specific machine that is required to do that. But a doctor's office can do like a 2 pass with just doing, the basic IV, drawing enough blood to mix it with the ozonated oxygen. Because I've done that at my doctor's office that doesn't have a 10 pass. So they kind of doubled up on the blood that they withdrew and, cleaned it. And usually it goes through a UV light as well before it goes back into the body. But I found that to be the most effective. There is Ebu, but I'm not a proponent of Ebu. Those are really thick needles that one has to go in each arm, which means they draw the blood out of one arm, mix it with ozone, and then clean it out, and then they put it back in the other. But that's a little invasive, even for me. And even when Steve had it done, my husband, he he was all burst up, and he's got the big pipes for veins.
Yeah.
So, so I'm not a proponent of EBU, and I do feel like ozone is really good. High dose vitamin C did bring those levels down. IVIG therapy, yes, good, insanely expensive.
Mhm.
As you know, it's incredibly expensive. I think for a half a dose was about $5,000.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that much.
Yeah,
That-
so he like they broke that up. So he actually got like a quarter dose because he was young, and then but we had to do that twice a month. So we paid $5,000 a month for him to receive IVIG.
wow. And that cost issue is huge. And some parents find themselves in a position where they just say, I don't have those resources. But if you're watching and you're in that camp where, because so many of my patients, when I was trying to help patients with this, didn't have the resources to do the really expensive testing or the really expensive therapies, but do everything you can, right? I mean, you're a warrior mom, you wrote about this, and you went through financial hardship at the same time that you were trying to do all of this, and you found a way.
Set your mind to do something, you can accomplish anything. I
Yeah.
mean, if you really, really want something bad enough, you'll accomplish it. So
Yeah.
we did not have the finances. My husband had just lost his business. I mean, he was knocking on doors doing consulting jobs just to so we could put food on the table. And yes, I bartered for treatments. I negotiated. I'm a really good negotiator. And I made payments and I also sold everything that I owned except my wedding ring to make sure that no one
Wow.
was treatments.
Yeah. And what a wonderful testimony because I was reading your story and he's driving a car and what is he going to college yet or about to?
So here's the thing. Noah went to college for 1 semester. And because the lack of support in college versus what he received in high school, which I thought was his support in high school, I felt was a little crippling. Noah's really high
Mm-hmm.
functioning. He didn't really need that much support, but it kind of
Mm-hmm.
crippled him to a point as to where he expected it when he went to college and he didn't get it. So they
Mm-hmm.
don't have that support in place in colleges
Yeah.
for individuals on the spectrum, which is something we definitely need to address. But so he did 1 semester, his grades dropped from being an AB student to C's, and he failed a class, so he freaked out. And then he's like, Mom, I just want to work full time and travel the world. And I'm like, as long as you're paying for it, okay.
Well, good for him. He's following his heart and his passion and that's what we want for our kids. Um, can you discuss there's a term profound autism. Discuss your understanding of, the autism spectrum versus profound autism and how that impacts families and what you do.
So back in the day, we used to um, differentiate high functioning, profound, you know, um, kind of in the middle. Now it's like level one, two, three. Level one is high functioning, level three being profound. Profound is your non speakers primarily. They lack control of their motor functions, and they need support. They can't be without support. So that is how we defined profound versus the high functioning. And Noah, after we started intervention, became a high functioning kid. He started off more on the lower end and became very high functioning. And now I honestly wouldn't say that Noah even has an autism diagnosis anymore. Um, but, you know, he likes fitting into that whole narrative. So I just leave it alone.
You started an organization, Autism Health. Tell us a little bit about that, why you started it, what you're trying to accomplish with this organization.
So first I started a conference, And the whole idea of the conference was to be able to address the underlying conditions associated with autism and to give parents solutions and to give them hope and inspire them to embark on this biomedical intervention. And then to also bring in those truth tellers and give facts, real facts, sometimes the hardcore truth of, what is underlying, what's happened, why are we seeing this insane rise in autism. So I want people to have everything. And so I created a conference, and that conference cost me and my husband a lot of money out of pocket after the first event, probably about $40,000 to $50,000 out of our own money. So I decided to create a nonprofit organization because we did a lot of scholarships. I didn't want anybody to not be able to attend the conference. So we funded scholarships. So the nonprofit was created to initially to fund those scholarships, and then also to create other forms of education and a community. So now we do monthly educational webinars with credentialed speakers. We do autism support groups. We also now fund research. And we have partnered recently with two organizations. One is Dr. Goodnow Enterprises for plasmalogen supplementation to help repair the myelin in the brain, which is the protective coating over the neurons for individuals with autism. So we've partnered, and they've sponsored over 200 families with plasmalogen supplementation. We've also recently partnered with Cellular Performance Institute in Mexico, Ed Clay and CPI, to conduct a clinical trial for autism for mesenchymal stem cells. And CPI is one of the top labs in the world. I think they fall at around number 8. And primarily what they do is they actually do a lot of sports injuries and cancer. And when I approached him, I asked him if he treated individuals with autism, and he said, well, we don't treat children and we don't treat autism. He said, and I wouldn't do it unless I knew that it actually worked. So I told him to, consider it. And so he went to his board and he came back to us and said, we had a lengthy discussion and we would like to fund a clinical trial for autism. And I'm like, shut the front door. I'm like, really?
That is awesome. I mean, some of these therapies, you've had experience with them, I believe, right? Personally. I know when I was in practice, I attended a Good Now lecture and I was intrigued, beyond intrigued with plasmalogens and actually started implementing them some, but we didn't have the research. So thank goodness you're doing that research. That's so important. And then the stem cell idea seems to be so important. And I think you did that for Noah, right? Stem cell?
So, yes, we did the Bradstreet protocol back in the day. In 2012, we took Noah to the Ukraine. Now, before anybody judges, I researched stem cell therapy for about 2 years before I even considered it. And I had already laid a foundation to clean Noah's gut. We had used GC-MAF injections to boost his immune system. And then we went to the Ukraine for stem cell therapy. Now, back then, you couldn't find stem cell therapy here in the United States. And now you can. We work with a very reputable lab actually down in Texas. It's extremely affordable. They use a matrix, they use cord blood stem cells with the cord tissue, which makes it highly potent. And then they also add exosomes to their stem cells, and it's billions of stem cells. We've had great success with many parents. And and I was just beat up in the the news over it.
Yeah, let's pivot to that a little bit. Before we pivot, how would people find out more? Because I know you're a resource, you do coach. How can people reach you? How can people learn more? Where do they go?
So people can reach me at Tracy, Tracy, at autismhealth.com. I'm happy to answer any questions, refer them to my resources. So the lab that we work with in the US, all proceeds go to Autism Health. And the referral is I've done a deep dive research. And what I really like about this lab in particular is that they do not use DMSO to cryogenically freeze it. And this is definitely a concern because a lot of individuals, mainly children, have a histamine reaction, an allergic reaction to DMSO. And DMSO becomes, after being cryogenically frozen, becomes toxic.
Mm.
And so prior to, it's not bad. Afterwards, so they use trehalose, which is a naturally derived sugar. And then they pre-screen for vaccinated parents, no vaccinated parents, but they also post-screen. They make sure that there's no spike proteins, bacteria, viruses, mycotoxins, microplastics, all those things, and it's super clean. In their viability testing, this is important. You always want to see somebody's viability tests. So their viability testing upon administration is 96% or better after being cryogenically frozen. So this is the deep dive that I do. This is the knowledge that I have. Yes, there's many different kinds of stem cell therapy. I'm not a proponent of adult or autologous stem cell therapy, which is your own, because through oxidative stress, your stem cells start to die off. And if you're taking, stem cells from a sick individual, then typically you're getting sicker stem cells. So I always say the matrix, the combination is pretty effective. I do know that down in Mexico, unfortunately, they do use DMSO to cryogenically froze, but typically they make them fresh. So if they're fresh, then we don't have to worry about them being cryogenically frozen. But I've talked to many families that have gone to other companies and their kids have had a histamine reaction.
Mm. That is an important distinction I did not know about. Thank you for sharing that. I would like to learn a little more from you about the Interagency Autism Coordination Committee that you, I think, are still involved with, right?
I am.
Tell us about that. What's that all about? What are you doing? And what is your hope for the future with that?
The Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee, it is a federal advisory committee, and I emphasize advisory. So we coordinate autism-related activities across the federal agencies. We work under Health and Human Services, and we advise on research, services, and policy issues that pertain to autism. And again, we advise. So we have 3 to 4 meetings a year. And in those meetings, typically we have topics that we discuss. These meetings are broadcasted live, so you can watch them. And then you can also go on the IAC website, which I think is iac.hhs.gov. And you can watch the previous meetings. So we had our first meeting on April 28th. It was quite interesting, but it was kind of what I expected. You have your public members, which now is down to 20 public members, and that's us parents, advocates, doctors, the ones that Kennedy placed to be those public IAC members. And then you have your federal members. You have those under the different departments under HHS. And I'm not going to say this for all federal members, but for some federal members, there is a lot of kickback. An example is when we were in the meeting, we're talking about eloping. Now, eloping, this isn't the first time that eloping was discussed in an IAC meeting, and the importance of, having an alert system for when kids with autism elope and training first responders on where to look, body of water, highest drowning rate is kids with autism, and what to do and how to react to these children. You would think, yeah, everybody would be on board. This needs let's get this handled. No, 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 no. So many, not all members, were like, oh, well, we need to think about this. We need to take it back to our departments. First of all, what's to think about? What's to think about? And secondly, when you're going to get back to us. So give me a date. I asked him 3 times in that meeting. So give me a date when you're going to get back to us. And how long is it going to take you to get back to us? Are you going to take another 15 years? Dr. Paul, I don't have any filters.
No, it's I can't even imagine when they were setting up the new organization under RFK Jr. and we were all excited about that. Kudos to those of you who stepped up because you're walking into a quagmire of a mess. And it's so hard to change anything in big government, right? I mean, it's just like so anyway, thank you for stepping forward for our kids in that regard. I hope it ends up making a difference. Can you
If
summarize?
anything, we create awareness. I do say we create
True,
awareness.
true. You had a piece written about you in The Guardian, which tends to write some interesting things about people in the health freedom movement.
Yes.
I read your response, which was beautiful, by the way, but maybe you can just summarize for us what that was all about. What's going on?
Initial attack was on Kennedy in regards to stem cell therapy and his backing on stem cell therapy. And then he went into those that companies that do stem cell therapy in the United States, outside of the United States. And then he started to attack parents, stating that, well, first on the side of people who or companies who are administering it, stating that they overcharge, the ripping families off, so on and so forth. Now, yes, there are companies out there that do that. There are companies that have faulty stem cells. I'm not saying that any of that information is wrong, but to categorize it into all stem cell companies is wrong. And then to say that us parents are just experimenting on our children by doing stem cell therapy or any other intervention. So he specifically went after me in regards to the stuff that I put in my book, on all the intervention that I did for Noah, all the IV therapies, the HBOT, so on and so forth, which, by the way, he wouldn't be where he is today if I didn't do it. And he thanks me. He thanks me. And then he went in to attack me in regards to my relationship with CPI and their willingness to fund a clinical trial for autism, and the fact that it's in Mexico and it's not FDA regulated.
Yeah, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't sometimes. As we start to wrap this up, what are your biggest concerns now going forward, and what brings you hope, if anything?
So my biggest concerns is like, one, I hope Kennedy stays in place. And because although people feel as though what's going on is slow moving, he's doing the best that he can, I feel. And you know, keep a positive attitude in regards to progress. At IAC, we, as all of us as a body of members, we are doing our best with what we have. And, stay positive for your child always, because where the mind goes, energy flows. So
Mm,
I always say, and then do your research and never give up hope, ever, ever, ever.
wonderful. Well, you are a gift to the community for sure and to this world. I would encourage those of you who are on this journey, if you haven't picked up Warrior Mom, that book is a great overview of, what you did, but also really cutting edge things that are available. A lot of us don't know about. Certainly your regular doctor doesn't know about these things. You have to think outside the box. So anyway, I want to thank you. I want you to have the last word and also let people know how they can get a hold of you and learn more.
So first of all, if you have a child with autism, you are on this journey and it is your perfect journey. And I know it might not seem like that right now, but my son gave me purpose. And I have been able to, help so many families. And I feel like it was very spiritually led. And our organization, Autism Health, is here to assist you, and it doesn't cost you a dime. We offer free autism support groups every single month, a free educational webinar every single month. Every year, we do an annual Autism Health Summit, typically end of April. Next year's is April 29th through May 1st here in San Diego, and we would love for you to attend. But all that information you can find at autismhealth.com. And if you have any questions for me, again, you can reach out to Tracy, Tracy, at autismhealth.com.
Thank you so much, Tracy. You really present important information that brings a lot of hope for people who do access this information. And I love the fact that most of it's for free. You're just providing a service. You're a prolific writer too. You have is it a Substack or a blog, or how do people access your writings? Because I've been reading it.
I decided not to write another book because you know what you have to go through to write another book, to publish it, to get it out there, to market it. So I decided to write a Substack instead. So it is autismwarriormom.substack.com or whatever. But on Substack, it's Autism Warrior Mom. So you can Google that and you can find my Substack, and I write articles. Typically, I try to do at least one a week. Things have been pretty busy because I'm technically the only person running this organization right now.
Well, you're doing an amazing job. Keep writing. You're a great writer, and you are writing on the topics that parents need. So, thank you for that incredible work, and I look forward to connecting with you again in the near future.
And thank you for all you do, Dr. Paul.
Thanks for watching, everyone. You can reach me at kidsfirstforever.com, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
We are live. Okay, so tell us your name.
Leslie.
Leslie. And you are?
Judean.
How old are you?
14.
14. Okay, and how many children have you got?
I have 6 children.
And what number are you?
4.
You're number 4. Okay. What happened? You vaccinated 5 of them and 1 is totally unvaccinated. So let's go through the children. Talk me through it.
So my oldest, who's 19, and right now we are fighting Hashimoto's thyroiditis. She's fully vaccinated.
And what does that look like?
Well,
Hashimoto's?
she is very active. Both my husband and I are phys ed teachers by trade, and so our kids are naturally athletic, not many musical. And so our kids are very active. So she was a gymnast from very young, from 3 years old up to, I think she quit at 12 because she kept getting injured and she had a ton of inflammation in her body. I would have to put Bria on special diets because her stomach kept getting distended, and she was gaining a ton of weight instead of losing it during those during basketball season. She was eating all healthy proteins and vegetables. She would gain weight, and so I was like, what's going on? So I took her to my pediatrician, and I said, could you please check her hormone levels? It's more than about weight. It's not about weight, it's just about health. And so he said, oh, it's completely fine. Well, Bria has kept gaining weight, and then her sleep habits started to get off. And like I said, she would have these tingling feelings in her feet and in her hands. And so finally I got some help, took her to a naturalist, and this doctor or this nurse practitioner said her inflammation is a 14, and also said that she was borderline, definitely borderline, how do I put this, like she would have to go on medication for thyroid. Her thyroid was a 4.85, and recently we have that back down to 2.5, which is almost very perfect, but her adrenals are still a disaster. So Bria is trying to get into shape because she enjoys being active, but she said, my mom, my feet are so swollen, I can't run properly on them. So it's terrible. And on top of that, she has babesia, it's called, which is a co-infection to Lyme. And I found that out not through my pediatrician, but through the nurse practitioner, naturalist, specialist.
Okay. And she has, what was the last vaccine that she had?
The last vaccine would have been the meningitis vaccine.
Did she have Gardasil?
No, I chose not to get that because I heard of the dangers.
Okay.
Nor any flu vaccine because I knew enough not to get those.
Okay. Next child?
My next child is now 17. His last vaccine was meningitis. Lorenzo, a very smart young man, very active. And for him, I would always yell at him and say, sit up in church. His whole childhood, he'd always slouch down. And I thought he was just not wanting to sit up straight, not wanting to listen to me. And so recently, probably 2 years ago, he said, Mom, he said, can you please take me to the chiropractor? I probably need an adjustment. My back hurts. So I said, sure. So we went to the chiropractor, and he, you know, the whole routine, they give you the a x-ray. And so we did the x-ray, and this gentleman who's like a big Marine, you know, guy, he's a chiropractor here in Rochester, he said, do you see that x-ray? I said, yeah. And you need a lot of years of schooling to read an x-ray, but his spine looks like this, like up at the top. He said, no wonder he can't sit up without any pain. And so I believe that is a vaccine injury through my research, because vaccines harm the neurological system, and that's a direct correlation, the spine with the neurological systems of the body.
So he's getting help through chiropractic work.
So he's getting help through chiropractic work, and you know, I give them high D3, NAC, vitamin C, magnesium, all of those things.
And so we're on child number 3.
Child number 3 is Judea, and he, from 0 to 6 months, you know, from the day he was born till 6 months old, or at least in my memory from him first getting his vaccines, he cried every night. I would be up nursing the baby in the middle of the night, just crying. And mind you, I had 3 other young babies because I had a lot of children in a small amount of time. So I was sleep deprived. He would scream and push his legs out every time I would breastfeed him. And I prayed to God. I said, Lord, please help this baby get better. I don't know what to do. His doctor was like, well, you're going to have to stop breastfeeding him. Your milk is bothering your baby. And I was like, well, God made me to nurse a baby. It's the best milk I could give him. How could this be? And you know, through my research again, finding out later on, and at 6 months he was healed. I prayed over him. I do believe that God healed.
We're talking about you?
Stomach. Yes.
Oh, I thought you were number 4 here.
Yep. He had a lot of digestive failure. I had to put him on like a baby Prilosec because they said he would spit up all the time. So it was very digestive. Finally, at 6 months, he could go to the bathroom. I do believe that was a healing from the Lord. And so I just kept going with the vaccines. I didn't know.
Do you have stomach issues still to this day?
No.
You're good now?
I'm good now, yeah.
Would you ever take a vaccine?
No.
Never?
I mean, no, not really.
No,
I would
not
be
really.
going to school.
No, not really
If-
about it.
If I did, I would be going to school right now. But
You're homeschooled.
yes.
Okay, well, that's a good thing right now.
Yep.
All right, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, so then he developed neurological tics. Because remember, I got
You,
vaccinated.
this one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. He was not diagnosed with tics, but when you clear your throat for 100 times when you're 8 years old, you have a tic. When you go and one Sunday morning I had everyone home and I was like, well, is he sick? But he kept clearing his throat. So I was so frustrated. I went to my pediatrician, and actually my doctor was on call that Sunday morning, and I said, Doctor, I don't know what's going on with him. He keeps clearing his throat. So he said, oh, he's got exercise-induced asthma. And I was like, that is the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. And I actually like my doctor. Like, I just liked him as a person, you know, and I did not give him the medicine that he wanted him to take. I instead gave him a ton of magnesium, and because that calms the nervous system through my research. And actually within 4 to 6 weeks, he was better from those tics. He still struggled with them throughout the years. I did stop vaccinating him at that point because of them, through my research again, knowing that this was a problem. And Judea also had what I believe was called chorea, and I tested this with all my kids, and when you have your hands out here like this, It actually affects a lot of pandas kids. His fingers, out of all my children, were the only ones that did this. You close your eyes and do this, and his fingers would move. His handwriting was very, very just not typical of a 5-year-old. Okay. Or I'm sorry, not typical as a 7-year-old, but he wrote like a 4 and 5-year-old, just very edgy. And I knew, again, that's the neurological, not able to, and even when he takes a picture today, he shakes because he can't keep it still. So that's probably still from those bouts.
What was the last vaccine you had?
So I don't know specifically. I do know that he had his kindergarten shots, and that was it after that.
I still have to get more shots if I go to school.
Yeah, but you're not going to get any more shots.
No.
Mum's in charge.
Yeah.
Next child?
So my next child is Gabriel. Gabriel, I believe his emotions and just his behavioral, he had a lot of behavioral issues, a lot of ADHD. He couldn't even sit with me and read a book when he was 5 years old, so I didn't send him to school. Then that's when we were going to school. I had him actually under religious exemption, so he did not get his kindergarten shots. He did get his shots, up to, I guess it would be, 2 years old shots. He did not get anything after that. And Gabriel struggled with his hyperactive behavior and just keeping his emotions together. He was just always having temper tantrums and fits, and still today is very high strung. For Gabriel, I think it was about when he was 8 or 9 years old, he would just constantly have ear infections. And then I went and I'm like, how is this his ear infection? It would be all of a sudden, you'd be riding in a car with him and he would scream and his ear would leak out fluid. And so finally we took him to an emergency room. He's like, oh, he's got an ear infection. And so, okay, they put you on antibiotics, but I never gave it to him because I'm like, I don't want him to take antibiotics. I don't want to mess up his gut. I know the information about that. So I would give him just Tylenol instead to help the inflammation and just run its course. And so finally, after the 100th or how many ever, I don't know, I'm exaggerating, just a lot of ear infections, I asked the doctor, I'm like, are you sure it's an infection? Because he doesn't have a fever. It seems to be acute when it comes on. And he said, well, let me give you a script to go see a ear, nose, and throat doctor. So we went to the ear, nose, and throat doctor. He goes, and now Gabriel should have been on an antibiotic. The doctor doesn't know. The pediatrician did not know I was not giving it to him because I just chose not to do that. I just kind of went through the motions. The ear, nose, and throat doctor said he does not have an ear infection currently. Okay. I said, well, what does he have? He says he has cysts growing currently in his ear. So Gabriel has had to he had bones actually eaten out of his ear. He had multiple cysts growing and just the acidity of them eating the bones out of his ear. And now he has had to have 2 surgeries, and they had to move the anatomy in his ear to because the bones are gone. So he had hearing loss. When you and I get a 0 and a 5 on a hearing test, I explain it like this. Gabriel was getting 60, okay, in that left ear. And so he needed to wear a hearing aid, but he would not do that. So currently he has a 25, whatever that means, in that ear. It's not perfect, but it's 1 ear, so he's able to
How old is he?
overcompensate. He is now, Gabriel is almost 13.
Okay,
So it's been a few years. But yeah, I attribute that to childhood vaccines because they told me it was congenital. So
Well, that's 5 kids we talked about,
that
right?
is 5 kids, yes.
So your last child
Mhm.
has had nothing.
0.
Not even vitamin K?
No, not even vitamin K.
All right, so how does that last child, girl or boy?
She's a girl. Mhm.
She's a girl.
Yes.
How does that child compare to the others?
She has had 3 minor fevers, and that's it. And no record of her going to the pediatrician. They actually call me all the time to bring her in for weights and measures. But
So she doesn't have any of the conditions that, no?
0. She has nothing. No ear infections, no pink medicine. No, I've been through, multiple ear infections, strep. I've had kids with staph. My first daughter I spoke to you about, she has had staph. I don't know if your body's unhealthy, you get staph. She would get staph just from a scrape, because her body could not fight, those bacteria. So she's had nothing.
And we're thrilled for her, right?
Excuse me?
We're thrilled for her. That's great news.
It's amazing news.
But how does it make you feel? Because that's your proof there.
It's proof.
So how does it make you feel about the 5 others? Because you were lied to.
I was lied to. I'm disgusted with them. I actually am a little disgusted at myself for just going through the motions. Even when my kids got sick, I wasn't really like sending them to the doctor because I was raised on a dairy farm, you know, where we had immunity from the raw milk. And, you know, my mom wasn't always quick to take us to the doctor. We kind of just let things run its course. But I'm just mad that I was like, why would I let a doctor inject something into my child that they were never in the lab to find out what's in there, and that I was never in the lab to find out exactly what was in there. I'm extremely, extremely disgusted at our system and why you have to inject your children with it, even with great measure, you know, because the risk is so great to get a vaccine injury than the actual risk of the disease itself. We've eradicated that. We live in the United States of America. Our air and our water are clean. We do not live in a third world country. We do not have the same harms that maybe other countries. Even then, I feel like I would rather take the risk than to inject anything in the bloodstream, the life of my children's body. The blood is the life. That's where the life is in the blood.
Thank you for that. It's very important, the story. I'm sorry that we were all lied to. But at least your generation can go forward, have children, and know there is. Be careful who you marry.
Yes.
Don't forget those words. In the it's so important. You'll be on the same page. All right, he probably does not want to be hearing that age 14 right now, but you will remember those words one day. And your mom is smart. She's homeschooling you. She's got it under control. She's good. She's protecting you. It's good.
Sure am.
Right, you can sign the BAS, and you can sign them on behalf of your brothers and sisters as well, but just not that last one. What's she called, the last one?
Evangelina.
Evangelina. Okay,
Which means truth bearer, by the way.
She cannot go on the bus. The others can. Okay.